Thank you very much. So my name's Ruth Round. I'm the Applicant Support Manager at the Gateway. My colleague Lee Cooper is also here to answer your questions. I'm just going to turn off my camera because it distracts me if I can see myself when I'm presenting. But when we get to the end of the presentation and we take the questions, I will put the camera back on so we can have a kind of proper conversation. So if you've got any questions as you go through, do type those into the Q&A. Lee will be answering those as we go through, but some of them, if either they're complex and require a verbal answer, or if the same question's being asked lots of times so we can just answer it once, he will hang on to those and then he will ask them verbally to me at the end so I can give a more comprehensive answer. So if your question isn't being answered as we go through, we haven't forgotten it. It will be answered in the live Q&A at the end. So please don't keep posting the same question. We're not ignoring you. So some of you will get answers straight away, typed up by Lee, and others, they'll be at the end in the Q&A. So just bear with me. There's a few more people still joining us. So I will just turn my camera off and then we can start the presentation. Okay, so this student finance is obviously for 21-22 entry, so for people starting in September, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions. So we're going to go through the eligibility criteria, so who can apply for student finance, the funding that is available, how to complete your application, a little bit on budgeting, so how the money is paid to you and what's it for, information on repaying your student loans, and then we've got the live Q&A at the end. The presentation itself takes about 25 minutes, and then we'll have a good half hour at the end for any questions you've got that we can go through. As has already been outlined, please don't type anything confidential or any personally identifying information into the chat because it is open to everybody. So the figures in this presentation are for students currently resident in England. So if you are from Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, then the principles are the same, but the figures, some of the figures may be slightly different. So do check on the Student Finance Wales, Scotland or Northern Ireland websites for the detail on those. Formal regulations from the government are due to be laid before Parliament in the next couple of weeks. So everything I'm saying here has got the proviso that it is subject to government ratification, and the application process normally will open towards the end of February. We don't have an exact date, obviously we'll know nearer the time. And the other most important message is to make sure you apply for your funding before the 31st of May. If you apply after then, student finance don't guarantee that your money's ready for the start of term. So it is important to apply early. In terms of eligibility, people can apply for student finance if they have settled status in the UK. What that means is, obviously, if you're a UK citizen, you've lived here all your life, you've got a British passport, then you have settled status. If you're an EU citizen and you have your settled status, obviously again that's fine, and if you're from an international country and now have your indefinite leave to remain, then you are classed as having settled status. You also have to be ordinarily resident in England, which means this is your home, and you need to have been living in the UK for 3 years prior to the start of the course. So you basically need to make sure that you've got settled status or citizenship and have lived here for 3 years. If you don't fall into any of those categories, there are a few exceptions, but generally those are the main regulations and they can be found on the .gov.uk website. The other issue to be aware of is if you've been to university previously, that can impact on your entitlement to funding. So for example, if you've done a 2-year HND and now you want to start again on a brand new degree in a different subject, apart from the nursing and allied health professions, then you wouldn't get funding to start again and do another first year. If you have any more detailed questions on that, you can always post them in the chat and we can, sorry, in the Q&A, and we can answer them for you. The tuition fee loan is paid directly to the university to cover the full cost of your fees. So that is, it's not means tested on household income, and it's paid directly to the university. When you come to apply for your funding, there is a simple question: do you want the tuition fee loan, yes or no? If you've ticked yes, then that will be paid to the university. You won't get an invoice from the university. You won't ever see that money. It will just automatically pay your fees for you. Obviously, if you tick no, you will need to organise to set up a direct debit to pay the fees yourself directly to the university. So if you tick no, you will receive a request from the university for the tuition fee money. The living cost support, the maintenance loan, is paid to you, and that is what you have to live off for the year while you're studying. If you're living with parents, so if you're staying with your parents and travelling into university each day, then it's a slightly lower amount. The minimum's 3,516 and the maximum is 7,987. And that is because obviously if you're living with your parents, you haven't got rent and bills to pay. If you're moving into halls or rented accommodation, or you're a mature student and you're living in your own home, then it's a slightly higher rate, up to a maximum of 9,488. And if you're eligible for certain benefits, that tends to be students who are single parents, or students who have a disability and have the higher level of DLA or PIP, then you can apply for a slightly higher amount as you've got more costs. If your parents' income is over 42,875, then there is an assumed parental contribution. And what that means is, because you will get a lower rate of maintenance loan, the government assume that your parents will contribute towards your living costs in order for you to be able to pay for everything you need. If your parents aren't in a position to contribute, or if you feel that whatever amount of money you're getting from the government is not enough, then what you need to do is to make sure you've got a part-time job or savings or something to make the difference between what you're actually getting and what you need. So to give you an idea, these are just examples. So it is a sliding scale. They're not bands. So you might be somewhere in the middle of one of these. But if you're living, for example, away from home and your household income is 35,000 a year, then the government will loan you £8,130 a year towards your living costs. So as you can see, if your household income is less than 25,000, you get the maximum. If it's more than 65,000, you get the minimum. And if it's somewhere in the middle, you get somewhere in the middle. How they calculate that is, if you're under 25, then it's the income of your parents. So whoever that is you live with, whether that's one parent, two parents, parent and step parent, that's whose income they use. If you're over 25, then it's your husband or wife or partner. There are some circumstances whereby students under 25 can be classed as independent of their parents. And that tends to be if they've either got a child of their own or have supported themselves, i.e. work full-time for 3 years, or if the parents are deceased or the student is not in any contact with their parents. So, for example, if they've been in care. Other than that, if you're under 25, it is based on your parents' income. And they take the tax year 2019-20. So that's the taxable income that Student Finance will always use to do the initial assessment on how much maintenance support you get. 1920 was obviously a reasonable year, and since then, as we all know, it's all gone horribly wrong. So there's likely to be people whose parents or partners were earning reasonable money in 1920 and since then have been made redundant, or if they're self-employed, they're not able to earn as much money. If your parents or partner's income from April 2020 has decreased by more than 15% at the time you start your course. So if, for example, your parents or partner were earning 60,000 last year and then next year they're predicted to earn 30,000, then you can put in a current tax year reassessment, which means you get reassessed based on the circumstances as they are when you start in September, rather than at the circumstances as they were in 1920. So that is something to be aware of if your circumstances have changed fairly radically. If their household income was under 25,000 in 1920, there's no point having a reassessment because you're already getting the maximum available to you. So it's really only for people who have higher, who had a higher income and it's now dropped significantly. There are additional means tested grants for students with dependents. So if you have children, or particularly if you need to put them into childcare to enable you to attend university, then do make sure you apply for the additional grants, but they are very, very tightly means tested against income. So if you're a single parent or have a partner that doesn't work, you will probably get the maximum. If you have a partner that does work, they will take that into account and you may get all, some, or even none of those allowances. So it is important to apply early, particularly with the cost of childcare, to make sure you are getting the support that you need. The Disabled Students Allowance is for any student with a disability or a specific learning need and is used to pay for particular equipment or a non-medical helper. There's one maximum amount, which is 25,000, but obviously most people don't need that amount of support. So when you apply through UCAS, you should have specified on your UCAS form that you have a disability or specific learning need. The university will send a needs assessment form and you will be assessed on what exactly your needs are. If it's something the university provides anyway, so for example, the standard dyslexia enabling software has been already installed on all of our computers, so there's no cost associated with that. It's already put in place, so you don't need to worry about that. But if there is something where you're getting a specific piece of equipment, or you'll need, for example, a sign language interpreter in your classes, then that's what the Disabled Students Allowance is for, is to pay for specific help and equipment. If you're looking to do nursing, midwifery, or one of the allied health professional courses, you apply for your standard funding, as I've just outlined, and you can also apply for additional support from the NHS. So that is for a £5,000 bursary in each year of the course, an extra £2,000 for people who have dependent children, and a further £1,000 for people on the shortage subjects. Of the courses we offer at Wolverhampton, that is learning disability nursing, mental health nursing and podiatry. So those three are classed as shortage subjects. You need to apply for your standard funding first, because the NHS will assess you as eligible if you are eligible for standard undergraduate funding. So you need to apply for your funding, have agreed that your tuition fee loan and maintenance loan, and then you send that evidence to the NHS to apply for the additional support. If you're doing an integrated nursing or allied health professional degree with a foundation year, you can get your standard undergraduate funding for the foundation year, but not the NHS bursary, because there's no hospital placements in the foundation year. It's purely theory based. If you're doing any of the nursing and allied health professional courses apart from paramedic science, then you can get the funding even if you've got previous undergraduate study and even a degree. So paramedic science, unfortunately, you can't get funding again if you've got a qualification already, but for all of the others, it doesn't matter if you've been to university or if you've got a degree, you can still get funding for the allied health professional courses. There are also scholarships and bursaries from the university. So the travel fund is for all UK undergraduate full-time students, and that is a £300 fund which can be used either to travel to and from university on tram, bus and train, or it can be used if you're moving into university halls, so we can give you £300 off your accommodation, or you can use it for printer credit if you're photocopying or printing. We also have an access bursary, which is for students who have been in care or for students who are deaf or hearing impaired, a bursary for students who are estranged from their parents, and the sports scholarship, which you don't have to be studying sport to apply for that, you just have to be a high level athlete or sports person. We have assorted Olympians and footballers and people who do judo and gymnasts and all sorts of different sports. So if you are competing at a high level, do apply for that, because it can help you to be able to continue with your sports, with your competitions, with your equipment, with your training while you're studying. The Dennis Turner Hardship Fund is, as it said, it's our university hardship fund, so it's for students who find themselves in financial difficulty. And for that, you need to be enrolled and attending and have applied for all your standard funding already. And what you do is you fill out a form with your incomings and your outgoings. And obviously, if your outgoings are more than your incomings, then the university will try to help out as many students as possible. If you're looking to study part-time, the funding is exactly the same, the eligibility criteria. It's just that the maintenance loan, the living costs, you only get half as much if you're studying half the amount of study as a full-time person. So if you're studying 60 credits rather than 120, then the maintenance loan, you only get half of that. The maintenance loan is only available for students on degree courses, so not HNDs or foundation degrees, but the fee loan is for all of the undergraduate courses, HNDs and foundation degrees as well. Sorry, just taking a sip of water, I'm losing my voice. So apply as early as possible. Normally, as I say, it opens at the end of February. And again, if apply before the 1st of May to guarantee your money's in place, ready for the start of term. You don't need to have a confirmed place to apply. You don't even need to have decided which is your first place. Just pick whichever university and course you think you'd most likely to go to and put that on your application. It's very, very easy to just log back on and change that at a later date. So just pick a course, pick a university, put your application in. Student Finance are not assessing the university's eligibility, because all universities are courses are eligible for funding. What they're assessing is your eligibility. So the course that you put in doesn't actually matter. So fill it in, put a course in, and then if you change your mind, or if come August you end up going to a different place through clearing or whatever, you just log back on and change the name of the university and the course. Don't wait till August to apply for your funding, because you won't get any money till about November. And Freshers Week with no money is not fun, and you'll start to get extremely stressed when the university sends you a bill for your fees because they've not been paid. So do apply early and just log back on and change it if you need to. Keep your customer reference number and secret answers safe. Please don't keep them on your phone under Student Finance England secret answers, because obviously there's an awful lot of confidential information, including your bank details, on the Student Finance England website, so you do need to keep it secure. And if you're sending any original documentation, do send it by recorded delivery, because again, you don't want to lose official documents. There's some useful information on the .gov.uk website, so you can check if you're eligible, you can see how much loan you get. You can also, under prepare your application, it tells you what information you need to have to hand when you come to apply. So instead of starting your application and having to run upstairs and search under the bed for your passport. You can have everything there ready. So passport, national insurance number, parents or partners' contact details. That's the kind of information that you need to have to hand ready for when you apply. And when you do come to apply, what you need to do first is create an account. So you need to log on and set up a password and secret answers. Your parents or partner will also need to create their own account as well, so that they can put their information on. Oops. So what you'll do is you'll create your account, log in, put in your parents or partner's contact details. Student Finance will email them. They will create their own account, and then they will link it to your account. So they'll put in your customer reference number so that Student Finance England will know whose parents they are. If you've got a sibling going to university at the same time, so you've got 2 of you going, your parents will only need to fill out one lot of information, and they will link it to both of your accounts. So they haven't got to fill in a separate account for each child that's going to university. So they will link all the accounts together. Your maintenance loan payments are made in 3 instalments at the start of each term, which means you'll get 1/3 of your money in September, but you won't get any more until January. So it is important to make sure that money lasts, because if you get £3,000 in September and you think, great, but then you get to November and there's nothing left, it is a long time then till your next instalment in January. So work out what your essential bills are first. So main things are obviously rent, bills and food. Also your phone contract, things like that. Work out however much you know you're spending each month, and then divide whatever's left by the number of weeks until you get your next payment. And that is what you've got for non-essential shopping, socialising, anything like that. It is important, because it's no good just going to our hardship fund and saying I've run out of money if you've actually spent it on silly things rather than essentials. So do make sure you carefully look at how much money you've got and how long it's going to last. So the Save the Student organisation have actually done a survey of students and how much money they spend each week and what they spend it on. So this gives you an idea. As you can see, rent and food are the main sources of expenditure. So do make sure you've budgeted for those. As you can see, there's a whole range of things, holidays, clothes, shopping, takeaways. So you will need to bear in mind that you have to cover everything, particularly if you're moving away from home. You will need to cover all of your rent, bills, food, and everything that you need. Full-time students are exempt from council tax. If you're moving into halls, then you don't need to worry about that, because halls are automatically exempt because there's only students living in them. But if you're living at home with a parent or with a partner, then you being exempt from council tax can actually save them some money. So do look into that if you are living at home with non-students. Make sure you prioritise, said, your food and your rent, because those are the most important. And do use the library and online resources as much as possible. Books, particularly academic books, can be very expensive. You don't need to buy everything that's on the reading list. You may have a set text that you have to buy, but the rest of them you should be able to source either through the library or by maybe getting second-hand, so that you can save quite a lot of money by being organised, booking out the books that you need as early as possible, and making sure you return them on time so that they're available for other people. I know I've said this twice already, but do apply for your funding as early as possible. We do get students every year who turn up without any money because they've not applied for their funding until August. So please do make sure you apply in March or April at the latest. There's a student finance calculator, so you can put your particular household income details and it will give you an estimate of how much you're likely to get. Once you leave university, you get a notification of how much money you owe the government or the Student loan company. In April, the threshold's going up to 27,295. So if you earn less than that, you won't pay anything back. So if you've decided to stay at university and do a PGCE or a PhD, or if you're earning less than that figure, you won't pay anything at all back. And the government will only start to take repayments once you're earning more than that. The repayments are based on how much you earn, not how much you owe. And the loan is written off after 30 years. And at the moment, over 80% of students are predicted to not pay back their student loans. So the vast majority of people will have their loans written off after 30 years if they've not paid them back. To give you an idea how that works, so if you're earning 35,000 a year, then regardless of how much you've borrowed, the government will take £57.79 a month out of your salary with your tax and your national insurance to contribute towards your student loan. As you can see, at that level, you're not going to pay back all of your student loans. Only if you go on to earn a lot of money in the future will you pay back all of your student loans. So do keep up to date with us. There's information on our Money Matters and our scholarships web pages, and you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all the various other channels. The student finance website you'll obviously need when you come to apply. And if you want to find out more about money saving tips or what bank account to open or how loans work, Martin Lewis's Money Saving Expert and thewitch.co.uk have a lot of pages with a lot of information for university students and also parents of students to give them a lot more detail on how it all works. I work for The Gateway. We're pre-entry advice and guidance, so our job is to try and help smooth the path of inquirers and applicants to university by answering all of your questions and issues you've got. So do email us or phone us at any point. We aren't currently, as you can imagine, in our nice building. We are all sitting at home, but we are available by email and phone 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So if you have any questions, either tomorrow or whatever, or later in the year when you come to apply for your student finance, then do ask us and we will do our best to help you. Okay.
Hey
Right.
Ruth, thanks for that.
Let me just stop sharing, come back.
Okay guys, we're just going to run through the questions that have come in on the Q&A that I haven't managed to type out or I thought have been beneficial if we just get an answer straight from Ruth, the guru.
Before I lose my voice.
Yeah, no worries, you take a bit of a drink. Right, okay, I'll try and work through them in chronological order, so don't stress too much. We've got plenty of time and we will speed up towards the end, I promise, and try and get everything in. Jen's asked a really good question. I have used student finance for part-time higher education course, but not been to university. Will that affect my student finance application at all?
Okay, start with a complex one for me. It depends on whether you've achieved a qualification. If you've done part-time study and you've just done, I don't know, a year with the Open University, for example, but you've not achieved a qualification, then it won't impact on your entitlement to come and be a full-time student. If you've been awarded an HNC, HND, degree already or whatever, then yes, that will have an impact because you've already achieved a higher education qualification.
Thank you, Ruth. What happens if you're living with parents but are over 25? I think this is going to be in relation to the maintenance loan.
If you're over 25, you're classed as independent of your parents, so it's not based on your parents' income. But what you will get is the maximum living with parents rate. So because you're living with parents, you get the living with parents rate because you're not having to pay rent and bills and things like that, not as much. So yes, you would be maximum living with parents rate.
Brilliant, thank you. What if you're already get universal credit, 22, live alone and have a 1-year-old?
Okay.
British citizen, and I've lived here in England since
Okay.
August 2019.
Fab. Loads of information, just what we like. If you've got a child of your own, then you're classed as independent of your parents, even if you're under 25. So you would get the highest rate, the single parents rate of loan, but your income, your universal credit will stop because you'll be a full-time student. You still get things like child tax credit, child benefit, because they're for the child. And you will be reassessed to see if you can get anything like housing benefit. But the student finance is classed as income for benefits purposes. So they will look at your student loan. There's a certain amount of it disregarded because they're for course related costs for books and things like that. But the remainder is classed as income. So it's about £6,000 of the student loan is classed as income for benefits purposes. So what you'll need to do is apply for your funding. When you know exactly what you've got in place, take that to the benefits people and they will reassess you, but from September. So don't tell them too early because you don't want them to reassess you from now. You want them to reassess you from September. Any money you're getting for childcare for the little one doesn't count as income because that's paid directly to the childcare provider. So that won't impact on your benefits. That's just to pay for childcare to enable you to attend university.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ruth. Alison, I think I've answered this question a few times for you, I think. I think I've probably missed it if I scroll down. Do you still take my income for 2021 into consideration? We don't take student earned income into account, so we'll close that one off. Jen has asked, can you apply for childcare if you're pregnant when you're due to have the child or only when you have the child already?
Okay. The childcare, you'd need to have the child registered with the childcare provider. So obviously the child needs to be here because you'd need to register that child with a specific childcare provider. The additional support, things like the parent learning allowance, again, you need to evidence with a birth certificate. So what you'd need to do is apply without the child, if you like. So apply as normal, and then as soon as the child is born, submit a change of circumstance form and the child's birth certificate, so you can then be reassessed for parent learning allowance. And you'll need to have a registered childcare provider in place before you can apply for the childcare grant. So don't worry about the childcare grant bit till nearer the start of the term, but do get everything else in place as soon as you can.
Rafa's asked, hello, I'm living in the UK since 2 years. Student Finance have told me to pay my tuition fees. Is that correct? And if I'm unable to apply for a loan, can the university help me with my income in any way, like giving me a scholarship?
Okay, I mean, without all of the background detail, it's difficult to say whether Student Finance have made the right decision, but generally speaking, you do have to be resident in the UK for 3 years before the start of your course. If they've already turned you down, I'm assuming that means you're talking about this academic year, because obviously next academic year hasn't opened yet. So if you are a current student, you'd need to contact our student finance team, and they can be contacted at money@wlv.ac.uk, because I'm assuming from your question, it sounds as though you're a current student rather than somebody who's looking to come to university. If you haven't started yet, then I would recommend deferring your place until next year so that you can then hopefully have got you 3 years in and be entitled to the funding. What I would not recommend doing is enrolling unless you know you can definitely pay your fees, because you will be invoiced and you will be asked for the money if you don't get the student loan. So if you have enrolled, talk to the student union or the student finance team. If you've not enrolled, don't enroll and either defer your place until you've been here longer, or find an alternative source of funding.
Robin has asked, in 2019-2020, my mum was living alone, but in February, her partner's moving in. Whose income in 2019-2020 do I go off? Do I go off both of them or just my mum's?
It will be both, because the partner's there now. So they will ask for who is living in the household now, which is obviously your mom and a partner. And they will then provide their income details for that tax year. So unfortunately, even though he wasn't there in 1920, because you're applying for 21, 22, and he will be then, it will be both adults.
Another one on social work bursary. I'm reading conflicting articles about social work bursary available in the second year. Does Wolverhampton Uni provide this? And if so, what's the criteria? How many students is it available to?
Okay, we don't know from one year to the next how many will be allocated. The money is not from the university, it's from the NHS. But the social work bursary is quite different to the NHS bursary for nursing and the others that I outlined earlier. So the social work, we get allocated a certain number of bursaries for second and third year students. It's approximately, I think, 70 to 75% of the students on the course get one, but they change it every year, so don't hold me to that, please. And it's assessed on who gets the kind of the best results in their first year. So what I would recommend is do really, really well in your first year, and that maximises your chances of getting the bursary in the second year. The website for looking at more information on that, if you want to read it, because it's not on the normal bit, as I say, with the training grant, it's www.nhsbsa.nhs.uk/students, and then click on the link for social work bursary. One of my colleagues will type that into the chat for you in case you didn't catch it. Or you can just Google social work bursary and it will come up. But yeah, we don't know from year on year how many we're going to get. And by the time you're in the second year, that will be 22, 23. So we'll probably find out at some point in 21, 22 how many we'll have for the next year. You're on mute.
Sorry, that's me again. If I'm unsure if I want to live home or away, should I delay applying for student finance until I know or not?
No, definitely apply for your funding. Again, it doesn't actually matter if you put home or away for the initial assessment. So just apply and put one or the other. And then when you've made your decision, you can just log back on and easily change it to whichever one if it's something different. But the main thing is to get your assessment in. They can easily tweak minor things like home or away, different universities nearer the time. The most important thing is that your funding's set up ready.
Brilliant. Alison, could you just type in your full question, please, about the application used for access course? I just want to understand that a little bit more. If you could just re-pop it in the Q&A, we'll come back to that one in a little while. Another one, I've applied to my local university and a university out my city. I've not yet decided which uni I'm going to. What shall I put for living with parents or living by self? I think, Ruth, you've just really covered that one, haven't you?
It honestly doesn't matter. Just put one of them down and then you can easily log on and change it later.
What if your living circumstances change during the study? So you're living with your parents at the start of the course, but then you buy your own home and move out during study.
Yeah, again, you can log back on and change it part way through. So sometimes people start off living with parents in the first term and then decide actually they've got a group of friends now and they'll get a house together or whatever. Or sometimes people move away and hate it and move back with their parents. So you just need to notify Student Finance of a change of circumstance and they will reassess your student finance accordingly.
A couple of questions on this. I don't have a passport. What else can I use for my student loan?
Okay, you can use your birth certificate and you just need, there's a sheet to fill in, a bit like a passport, where somebody who's known you, like a teacher or somebody, can sign to say you are definitely you and this is your birth certificate. So as long as you've got a birth certificate, that's fine.
Thank you. Aman, you've asked, I want to do history with QTS, so essentially teacher training. I think we were talking about possible bursaries for that. I just needed to clarify if that was a PGCE, so a post graduate certificate of education. It's the year course you do after you've done a degree to become a teacher. So if you could clarify that for me, I can pop some links in the chat for you. Amy has asked, I live with my partner and his mom, so not my own parents, but my partner's parents. My partner is also a student, so how would this work when applying?
Okay, if you're 25 or over, it'll be based on your partner's income. If you're under 25, then you'll need to either show that you're estranged from your parents or have supported yourself for 3 years, or your parents will have to provide their income details, but you'll get the living away from parents rate because you're not living with your parents. You can live with somebody else's parents, but you can't live with, you get the away from home rate if you're away from your parents.
Thank you, Ruth. Sorry. Okay, I've been told on the foundation year I need to be at university for 40 weeks, but the accommodation contracts are for 37 or 52. Do you know how the accommodation works for foundation years?
I don't know of any foundation years that are 40 weeks, so I would double check that information first. Foundation years are normally the same length as the academic year. But if you are on a strange course and that is correct, then obviously contact our accommodation team and negotiate that. But I think that's probably not correct, but without knowing specifically which foundation year, I'm not sure.
Lauren, you've asked how to apply for bursaries. If you could just let us know which bursary that is, that'd be great. We can then let you know. If you're not born in the UK but have lived in here for more than 5 years and have status, would you have to pay extra for tuition fees, or would you pay the 9,250?
Again, it depends on your circumstances. It's difficult to answer that one without your full life history, which I'm not going to ask for today. So when you say status, if you've got indefinite leave to remain or settled status, if you're from EU and you've been in the UK for 5 years, you should be classed as a home student for fees purposes. So yeah, if you're on a visa with an end date, you'll be international. If you've got settled status, then you should be classed as home.
A figures one here for you. Yolanda's asked, what is the minimum student finance living with parents or living in student housing? So while Ruth's getting a sheet out, we will just have a look at a few others. Yeah, and glasses.
Minimum for living with parents is 3516. Minimum for living away is 4422.
Pauline's asked 2 questions. I think they're part of the same one. What if you're living on your own, not with parents, and you're a mature student? What benefit can I claim?
If you're obviously a mature student, then you get the away from home rate. Most full-time students can't, if you're talking benefits, most full-time students can't claim benefits because they get full-time student finance. The only students who can apply for additional support are students with children, obviously things like child tax credit, child benefit, and students with disabilities may get disability living allowance or PIP. But in general terms, if you're just an adult with no disability and no children, you can't normally claim benefits because the government assume that there is no reason why you can't have a part-time job and earn extra money that way.
Alison's just come back and she said, is it the same application I use for student finance as the one I use for my access course? So same account?
Yes, yeah, you keep your same customer reference number throughout your life. So you log on to the student finance account using your same login, but make sure you click on higher education, not further education, because when you applied for your advanced learner loan, you'd have clicked on further education, applied for it that way. So just click on higher education and apply for the maintenance loan and tuition fee loan. It will also ask you, have you had student finance before? The advanced learner loan is not classed as higher education student finance. So don't confuse things by ticking yes, you've had student finance before. because then they'll ask you what it was for and what evidence, and the advanced learner loan has no impact on your entitlement to higher education funding. So.
Thank you, Ruth. Gemma's asked, I've done a level 5 diploma part-time HE through a college, and I've accessed student finance for it of about £1,500. I have a uni placement for mental health nursing. Does that mean I can apply for the NHS grant, but not the SFE loan?
If it's nursing, it doesn't matter that you've got previous university study. So for the nursing courses, you can still get your full normal student finance, tuition fee loan, maintenance loan, and the training grant. So because it's nursing, you don't need to worry about your previous study.
Thank you. What is the minimum student finance for someone who lives with their mom but receives universal credit? So I presume mom receives universal credit, maybe?
If mom receives universal credit, you'd probably get the maximum. Because universal credit is generally below 25,000 a year. Let me get my magic sheet out again and I can give you that. So if you're living with your mom and she's on universal credit, you should get 7,987 per year.
Thank you, Ruth. We've got about, it finishes at 15:15, doesn't it? I think, does this finish at 15:15? Yeah, so we've got 20 questions left and about 12 minutes, so we're gonna have to go quick fire. So Nicola's asked, I have 2 children aged 3 and 12. Would the funding be sent to the nursery by SFE, or will it be sent to me to pay the nursery?
It's sent to the nursery. You need to fill out the details. As long as it's an Ofsted registered childcare provider, you fill out the details and the money is then sent directly to the childcare provider.
Thank you, Ruth. My household income is below £25,000 and I live with my dad, who is a single parent. I currently receive a bursary for my football scholarship. How will my finance work? That's from Ethan.
You'd get the maximum because your dad's income's less than 25,000. So if you're living with your dad while you're studying, it's 7,987. If you're moving away, it's 9,488. And also do apply for our sports scholarship because you might get some extra money from that as well.
Gemma, you're asking lots of questions that are going to start, we're going to start to need to get some personal answers from you. So could you just email us in at gateway, so GATEWAY, gateway at WLV.ac.uk, and I promise we'll pick this back up for you and get them answered. Do you apply for student finance after receiving an offer? And if you do apply but don't have an offer for the year applied, will it be deferred or will you have to cancel it? That's been asked a few times by a couple of people.
Okay, you apply for your funding. It doesn't matter if you've had an offer yet. You just put down the course and university you want to go to. If you change that, you log in and change it. If you change your mind and decide not to come, you can just log on and cancel your application. So don't wait, apply for your funding. Very, very easy to change it or cancel it at a later date if circumstances change.
A good question by Gabby. Does owning your own home whilst being under 25 mean that my parents' income will be used or my partner's income?
If you're under 25, it's parents' income or nobody's, unless you're married. So if it's a husband or wife, then they will take it into account. But if you're not married, it won't be partner's income. It will just be either parents or, for example, if you've worked for 3 years and you're independent, then it'll be nobody's.
Sorry, Ruth, I was trying to do some typing. Binta, I'm going to type your answer in a second. Isabella, I was awarded a bursary in sixth form. Will this be the same for university?
No, it's a completely different system. But if you did get a bursary, it probably means you'll get higher rate of student loan. But yeah, it's a completely different system.
Olivia's asked, are there any extra grants or finance for primary teacher training?
No, unfortunately not. The government only give additional funding for secondary shortage subjects, so things like secondary maths, physics, chemistry. Primary is not, unfortunately, one that they give a bursary to.
And the question about the history QTS has come back. It was the undergraduate course, so there isn't a bursary separate for that. It is just tuition fee and maintenance loan. Yolanda, I have leave to remain status. I've been here since 2005. Would that affect student finance because I'm not a citizen?
No, you should be fine. If you've got your indefinite leave to remain, and obviously a lot more than 3 years, obviously apply for your funding early, send all your evidence, but based on that, I would say you should be fine for your student finance.
Thank you. I'm living on my own, but I don't think I class as a mature student as I'm 22. Would I still need to put my parents on the application?
Again,
That's
it
from Hannah.
depends. Yeah, it depends if you've supported yourself for 3 years, or you've got a child of your own or whatever. But generally speaking, if you're 22, it's based on parents' income.
Felix has asked, I was living with my partner. We are separated. She's left her son with me and our daughter. Will I still be supported by student finance?
No reason why not. It's difficult to tell without detail, but assuming you meet the eligibility criteria, so as long as you've got status and been here for more than 3 years, then you would apply. If you're responsible for the children, then you should also be able to apply for parent learning allowance, childcare grant, things like that. You just need to evidence that you're the person that claims the child tax credit, child benefit, and then you can apply for the additional support for the children.
Haley's asked, do I tell tax credits about student finance?
The student loan is not taxable in the traditional sense, so it doesn't count towards your income for tax purposes, but it's normally a good idea to tell HMRC of any change of circumstance just to make sure that they know what's going on. But if you have a part-time job, you can earn right up to the threshold before you start paying tax. The student loan is not classed as taxable income for that purpose.
And how does council tax reduction work if you're living with someone, a partner in the house?
Okay, full-time student would be exempt. And when you enrol, you can request a council tax exemption letter. So your partner will then be classed as a single person, single occupant for council tax purposes, not a single person, obviously, is your partner. They'll count as a single occupant, which means you get a 25% reduction on your council tax bill.
Fantastic, thank you, Ruth. Are you allowed to apply for student finance while being on universal credit?
You apply for your student finance, and then about 2 or 3 weeks before the start of the course, when you've got your notification and you're definitely starting, then you'd notify the universal credit that you were going to become a full-time student, and as of that date they would then change you, depending on obviously if you've got a child and things like that. So it would either stop completely or carry on, but it would be in a different form because you're getting student money now. So yes, you can apply, but you will need to notify them at the point at which you become a student that you're getting your student money.
We've got 5 minutes left. We will try and get through these, I promise. Is the childcare element means tested, e.g. PLA?
Yes, the parent learning allowance and the childcare grant are both very tightly means tested against income.
And that would be the same for Louise asking, I have 2 children aged 6 and 3. Will I get the £2,000 for dependent children while doing my nursing course? I think that could be
okay. Yeah, the nursing.
Grant.
Yeah, the nursing, the extra for the children, the £2,000 for the nursing is not means tested. The parent learning allowance and the childcare grant through Student Finance England are means tested. So if you've got children and you're doing nursing, you would get the 5,000 training grant and the £2,000 for having children, regardless of your income.
Okay, what help would I get being a single parent while being on UC, universal credit, with a health condition, classes as a disability, under 25, living in Lichfield?
Okay, so you'd apply, you'd probably get the higher rate of loan. Obviously you need to send it all to student finance, because of the fact that you've got a disability. Normally you can carry on getting some disability support, things like PIP, but they will reassess you because your circumstances change. So anybody whose circumstances change, obviously there is some reassessment going on there. So you should get your student finance as normal, and you might get the higher rate. And then depending on your circumstances, you may also get some support from benefits as well.
Okay, would my universal credit and housing benefit be affected by my student finance, maintenance and tuition fee loan?
Tuition fee loan has no impact on anything because you never see that money, it goes directly to the university. Some of your maintenance loan will be taken into account as income, some is disregarded for course related costs, and then universal credit will class that as income. But as I've said, if you haven't got children or a disability, if you're just an independent student, you're very unlikely to get any additional benefit support.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm going to be living with my parents from June, but I'm going to be living with a friend. Do I include theirs or just my own income, I think you're asking, Eden.
Okay, students' own income isn't taken into account, or your friend's income. So you would apply based on your parents' income, but have the away from home rate because you're not living with parents, you're living somewhere else.
Thank you. I'm just typing an answer very quickly. What is the difference between student finance and a bursary for uni?
I'm assuming by bursary you perhaps mean the nursing one. I mean, student finance is your basic funding, your tuition fee loan, your maintenance loan. Bursaries tend to be something else like a nursing bursary, a social work bursary, you know, a bursary from the university because you've been in care and you something like that. So a bursary tends to be an extra bit of money on top of standard student finance, but there's lots of bursaries for lots of different things. So.
And Gainer's just asked something in the chat, which I'll pick up. What age are children classed as? My boy is in his last year at uni, so we'll be back home before September, and my daughter is 16 on an apprenticeship.
Okay, if the older student is a student, they're independent. Once they're over 18, they're classed as independent. The younger one, if she's classed as in full-time education, so if it's a kind of education apprenticeship, then they're still classed as dependent. But obviously, if they're in employment, they're earning their own money, therefore they're not dependent on you.
I think that is it. Ethan, have we answered your question? My household income is below £25,000. I live with my dad as single, but yes, we have done that one. That was the football scholarship one. I do apologise. I'm just trying to skim through the chat as well. We've got a minute left. If there's any very quick ones, got to be fast with those fingers typing. And then Ruth can have a well-earned drink of water, I may add.
Still water. I promise it's water.
Okay, guys, if you do have any questions at any point, just email us on gateway@wlv.ac.uk. Alison's just quickly asked, how do we access the recording? I believe it's going to be up on the website very, very soon. Jen's asked, how will he know when it opens? I presume that's student finance. Student finance opens
It'll be
February.
Announced.
Yeah.
It'll be announced on various things, social media, and yeah.
Is that it, guys? Anything else? Any more? No? And we're still on. We haven't vanished yet.
Thank you very much for coming along, everybody, and hopefully you've answered your questions, but do contact us over the next 6 months, whatever, if you do have any additional questions, and we will answer those for you. Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.